It's 8:15 now. Tomorrow is the first ever World Autism Awareness Day, and we have in the studio Jill Stacey from Autism South Africa to shed light on the staggering numbers around this condition. It is reported that we have over 5,000 new cases of autism every year in South Africa. Jill, thank you very much for talking to us here on Morning Live. Let's give a definition. What actually is autism?
Well, autism is a lifelong condition. It's considered to occur as a result of a genetic predisposition, and it affects the brain development, the brain functioning, and then to be diagnosed with autism, there's a very strict criteria. It affects 4 times as many boys as it does girls. It is now considered to affect 1 in every 158 births. And that's where that statistic comes from, that in theory, if you look at our population, our birth rate, and the incidence of autism, that's why, in theory, we're getting 5,000 new cases a year, 400 odd a month.
Sure.
It's a massive...
When you say there's strict criteria when one has to be diagnosed with autism, what are the things that you look out for?
There is something called the triad of impairments, that there is qualitative impairment and development in language and communication, in social interaction, and there are a lot of repetitive and restrictive behaviours and thoughts. It's in the DSM-4, and there is, like I say, to be correctly diagnosed, you have to meet quite a tight criteria.
Yeah. And what age can you start to see whether a child is autistic or not?
Well, it manifests before 3. Whether it's detected before 3 is not always the case. But I would say parents start having concerns just after a year, towards 18 months.
And the signs that you should look out for?
Well, often there is speech delay. Development of speech is behind. There may be lack of eye contact, which is often quite common. The children may not particularly like to be held. They may be either very restless babies or actually very quiet babies. You often find that they're just sort of different. When it's very young, they're just different. I mean, there are more neurological signs, but like I have a son, a 23-year-old son, and when he was a little baby, he was different. And I couldn't quite put my finger on it. But because I've been a nursing sister before, when I went to the doctors, they said, you're neurotic, you know. But I think it's very important. People must listen to the mother's instinct.
Yeah.
And Michael he didn't interact particularly well with the other little toddlers in the group. He just sort of was different, and he was on his own. He slept very badly. We battled to get him onto solids. Like I say, the speech delay. So there is sort of, in hindsight, you see things. But at the time, you think, yeah, maybe I am neurotic.
Yeah. But then you actually shouldn't just ignore these signs. You should really take them seriously, and actually, if you are seeing as a parent something not right, take a child to the doctor.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Don't think you're being neurotic. I think it's more important. How as a family, I mean, you're saying that your child had autism. How as a family do you deal with it and cope with a condition like this?
It's difficult. It is very difficult. I think at the very beginning, when you're given the diagnosis, there is a sense of relief that you now know what is wrong with your child, that you're not neurotic, that it's not anything else that's been worrying on your mind. So you have a starting path. And a lot of people are against labels, but I do think it gives parents a bit of direction. And especially with autism, because the processes of the brain are very different. The way you educate the child and care for the child is also very different. So as a family, you have to come to terms with a diagnosis. You sometimes find that different members of families accept it at different times. So there can be a delay between the mum and the dad and the grandparents. It's an invisible condition. Yeah. There are no outward signs. So you tend to get the mother-in-law saying rubbish. It's because you're not disciplining your child. Because a lot of the manifestations, there are a lot of sensory issues with people with autism. So they react to those. They often have heightened senses. So they react to that, so it looks like a behaviour. So then you'll find the granny will say, you shouldn't let Johnny get away with that. So it's hard. Then once the family comes together around the diagnosis, yes, there's a lot of pressure. Siblings. I have a daughter as well, and she took a lot of strain. And I think a lot of people underestimate the impact on the siblings. So it's trying to keep that family balanced. as you work hard with your child as he's growing up. And yeah, it's very, very hard.
We at the beginning of the interview, we spoke about the alarming amount of cases that are being reported. We said there's about 5,000 new cases every year in the country. Is this on the increase?
They do believe it is. They have broadened the definition. The old statistics used to refer to one subgroup of people with autism, and they have broadened the definition. Yes, the awareness is better. Yes, the detection is better, but they are still concerned that the incidence is going up. I mean, 1 in 150 births is very, very high. And I think people totally underestimate, A, the number of people with autism, and the impact that autism has on people's lives. You know, they can't see anything.
And there's no preventative measures?
No, there isn't. There aren't preventative measures. People with autism say to us, why do you want to cure us? Why do you want us not to be around? We're not disabled. There's nothing wrong with us. We're different. Now, that is, you know, people with Asperger's syndrome, because autism on its own, without any effect on learning abilities, is called Asperger's syndrome. But because you are looking at a different function of the brain, you often get, in about 70% of cases, you get a degree of intellectual impairment as well. And that's hard. So it's not the autism that's so hard, it's often what comes with it.
Well, Jill, I know that tomorrow is the first ever World Autism Awareness Day. Is there somewhere where people get more information? Are there events that are taking place that we should be aware of?
I think we are severely under-resourced, so we haven't been as we haven't done an awful lot of functions this year, because we feel that working with yourselves through the media, because the awareness of autism is so low, we've put our energies into doing as much media awareness as possible. So there's no specific function, etc. The Autism Western Cape do have a function in the evening. But our main thing is just educating the public, and that's what we're going to be working hard on for this whole month.
I know we have a telephone number for people to call. I'm not sure. We can put it up on the screen, I'm sure. Is it the
011?
Yeah.
484 9909.
All right, that's the number we've got. 011 484 9909. Do you have a website as yet, or that's still something?
Yes, it's www.autismsouthafrica, all spelt out in full.
Okay.
.org. O-R-G.
Okay,
yeah.
.org. AutismSouthAfrica.org. Go there, find out all the information you need to. Perhaps look out, I'm sure there's some information about signs that you should look out for in your children, and other info that you can help if you are a parent with a child with autism. Jill Stacey, thank you very much for talking to us here on Morning Live. If you have a story that you'd like to send us, perhaps your child is autistic and you saw signs, and you can help other parents that perhaps with your story that could make their lives a little bit easier. And also, more importantly, I'm sure there are a lot of parents out there that don't even know that their child is autistic, and perhaps you can give some advice at this stage. Morning Live at sabc.co.za, 714-5193 on the 011 code.